Hi everyone, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Today I'm wanting to show you how I do my Mermaid Dirty Pour Tumbler. Before I show you the video, I did want to let you know that there was a small hiccup during the process. I was going to delete the video and restart my process and record it again, but then I realized that everybody makes a mistake, and sometimes while doing tumblers and anything, it doesn't go as planned. So I wanted to show you exactly how my process went with this tumbler and show you that it's okay if you stumble a little bit. Just pick yourself back up, and sometimes when you make a mistake and you fix it, it turns out even more beautiful than what you thought. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I'm going to go over the materials that I will be using today, and then we'll get started. For today's project, I'm going to be using a 20-ounce Ozark Trail tumbler. I have prepped my tumbler, and I did spray this down with white Rust-Oleum, white plus primer Rust-Oleum spray paint. It does not need to be the primer spray paint, but I do recommend you using flat or satin spray paint. And then we're going to be using Dixie Cups. I do have Dixie Cup for each color I'll be using, and an additional Dixie Cup. Some popsicle sticks to stir the paint, some water, and a surface that you can mess up. I do have my silicone mat underneath here, and then for my pouring, I always have a paper plate to catch the acrylic paint. And you need some sort of stand for your tumbler because you're wanting the acrylic paint to drip, but you're not wanting it to drip and stick to another surface. So I used an old spray paint can, and if you see, there's some space in there, so it does drip down and doesn't get stuck to the surface. I also use, for my big 30 ounces, a Clorox disinfectant white container works well for this. And I know some people also use, they use a paper towel rod, or you can use your foam football and your arm. And if you have a drying station, you can do it right on your drying station. The acrylic paints I will be using today, I did purchase from Walmart. It is Apple Barrel brand. The colors I'll be using are going to be Pool Blue, Laguna, Purple Pansy, Velvet Crush, and white. Now I am going to place the acrylic paint in individual Dixie cups. The Dixie cups I am using, they are 3-ounce Dixie cups, and there's a line inside of the Dixie cup. I kind of fill it a little over the line, the shadow line, not the design line. I don't exactly do it the same every time. With this project, I do end up wasting a lot of acrylic paint, but I'd rather have too much than too little, and thankfully the acrylic paint is rather cheap at Walmart. So I'm going to start pouring the paints in. Now that I have all the paints poured in their separate Dixie cups, this is when I'm going to add my water. I use the same water bottle every time. I just refill it, and I do have a heavy hand when it comes to anything. So what I did was I took an X-Acto knife, and I'm trying to get this on the camera, and I poked a hole in here, or you can use a ice pick. I poked a hole in here so I don't pour the water into the acrylic paint, but I drip it in the acrylic paint. And the reason why we're adding water to the acrylic paint is so it can drip and it'll have that nice flow whenever running down the tumbler. If you just stack all these paints on top of each other and then pour it onto the tumbler, it's not going to have a pour effect. It's going to slowly drip down, and it might even take longer. Honestly, I've never tried it without water. You can try it, but I know it works a lot better if you add the water to it to make it pour quicker. To my paints, like I said, I'm just wanting to add some drips, And then once I add the water, I'm going to stir the paint. And I know a lot of y'all are wondering how you know when you added too much or too little water. So you want this to drip. So if I hold my popsicle stick up and it's not dripping, I need to add more water. So this has a little bit of a drip. I'm going to add a little bit more water. And it should drip a little quicker now. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more. Now this is a little bit tedious, but you kind of want this to have a drip. I'd rather there be too much water than not enough water. So I would rather that. I'd rather have a fast flow than it stick on the top of the tumbler and not drip down. So this is probably a good consistency. It is now dripping. I'm going to do that for all my colors, and then we will start the next step. All of my colors have been mixed with water, and now we are going to take our extra Dixie cup, that is an empty Dixie cup, and we're going to pour all these colors into one Dixie cup. We are not going to mix at all. We're just going to pour. No mixing at all. This is very, very important. I'm not going to pour it in any order. I'm just going to randomly choose the cup that's closest to me and pour it into the Dixie cup. And I'm just pouring right on top of each other. I'm trying to show it in the camera, but I don't want to mix the colors too much. And then, oops, let's do the white. And then I poured until I have no more paint left inside of my cups. So I scrape the cup to pour it in there. It looks like this purple probably needed a little bit more water, but I think I had too much water in the white, so I think we will be fine. I'm sorry I'm off camera for this, but all I'm doing right now is pouring the remaining. I'm scraping the Dixie cups, and I'm pouring the remaining paints on top of each other, and I am not mixing these paints at all. I'm pouring it into a brand new Dixie cup. And I will show you what it will look like here at the end. Oops. Sorry, I hit the camera. Then the white. Okay. If you see, I poured them all in there. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to pour my paints onto my tumbler on top. Everyone who has OCD, I'm so sorry. I try to make this as straight as I can for the camera. My table does have a slight dip in it, so it does look crooked on camera, but this is straight up and down. I do apologize. I try to make it as straight as I could. So I'm just going to take my paints and my cup. Some people flip it upside down and then push it up, but all I do is I just pour. So I pour onto the tumblers, and then I focused on the sides of the tumbler. You can see that it is dripping. It's dripping down. I chose these colors because they kind of reminded me of a mermaid scheme, and I wanted to do a mermaid cup. And I let it drip on the edges of the tumbler. Every last drip. Look how beautiful that cup is. I love the insides of the cup whenever I do a dirty pour. Then I take my popsicle stick and I run it across the bottom to dump the rest of the acrylic paint onto the tumbler. I don't have enough acrylic paint for this. Okay guys, so it looks like I did not use enough acrylic paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the entire process all over again. And sometimes this happens. If you can see here, I'm going to end up posting this video to show you this, only because not all cups and not all cup processes are perfect. Sometimes you kind of mess up and you don't put enough paint in the cup. So I'm going to redo the entire process. I'm going to put paint in the cup, water it down, mix it together, and then I'll be right back. Just one quick thing. In the beginning of the video, I did say to add the paint just above the line. For this 20 ounce, I would add it just above the design line for the 20 ounce. Of course, you're going to use a different amount of paint per each size cup, but for the 20 ounce, I would add above the design line of the 3 ounce Dixie cup. All right, y'all, I am back and I have all of my paints mixed again, or I have all my paints mixed with the water, and I did dump them inside of a Dixie cup. If you see how much I have almost the top full, so I don't think I'm going to be running out of any acrylic paint anytime soon with this one. So I made sure I had plenty, and I'm going to do the same exact thing as I did before. Let me push this back for you, and I'm just going to pour over the tumbler, and I'm focusing on the edges of the tumbler so you can get a nice pour on the sides of the tumbler. So don't focus on the middle or the bottom of the tumbler. I always try to focus on the edges so I can get that pour. Let me spin this around for you. Now what I do is let's say like the most, I call it naked spots of the tumbler right here. Again, I'm going to take my popsicle stick. I'm just going to use the same one, and I'm going to pour it or push it towards that side. And it's just going to run right down. And don't worry about the spots that it's missing. I'm going to show you how you cover that one up as well. Now, if you notice inside of my cup, there's a lot of paint still inside of the bottom. That is completely okay, because we are going to fix all of these spots on the tumbler that was not hit with acrylic paint. So I'm taking some acrylic paint from my cup inside because it's so pretty and I just want it on the cup. And I'm just going to randomly place it onto the tumbler like so. Then I'm going to kind of scoop up, and I used to have a tiny spoon, but now I just use a big popsicle stick. I'm going to scoop up some acrylic paint that was poured, the excess that was poured onto the plate, and just scoop it up and place it on the tumbler. You can place it anywhere you like that you want it to be different, or have a different look to it. If you have too much like purple in one spot, too much white, you can just put this right over it. And this kind of, oops, sorry, going off the screen. This kind of fills in all the blanks. So whenever you're picking this up from the plate, try not to mix it too much. I'm just scooping it from the plate, and you can use a regular size popsicle stick. I just prefer a bigger one because it has a bigger scoop, but the regular size one works just as well. So don't go out to the store and buy a big popsicle stick. Don't freak out. You can still use a smaller one. And then right here, I think I have too much white. I'm just gonna start from the top and just let this pour down. Now, another very important thing about this tumbler is make sure you have this scraped from the bottom. make sure you have it scraped all of the excess acrylic paint off of the bottom of the tumbler, because whenever this dries, everything's gonna dry so quickly compared to the top. The top, if you have a lot and there's a lot sitting up there, it's gonna be a thick acrylic paint, so it's not gonna dry as quickly as the rest of the tumbler. And then now you just play with it and you just make it what you want it to be. And if you don't like this pour, all you have to do is remix the colors. Like for this one, if this is too much white for you, just remix the colors and add a little bit of white instead of a lot of white. So I know this is kind of random, but you can customize this as much as you like. Or like I'm doing right now, I'm adding my teal and my purple over the white. So it is, it's covering up the white some. I'm gonna let this dry for about 4 hours, and then I'm gonna take it off and show you the finished cup. One more thing I wanted to tell y'all, like I said, there's gonna be a lot of excess acrylic paint. At least there's always a lot of excess acrylic paint whenever I do it. You can transfer your drying stand or your spray paint onto another cup or onto another surface or plate, and then throw away this plate, or you can use this for another fun project. So I always transfer it over to this plate, so it's not as heavy just over time. All right, I let this dry for about 4 hours. If you are unsure if it is dry or not, tap the top, or I should say the bottom of it. And if the bottom is completely dry, then the entire tumbler should be dry. And this is the final result. Now, if I wanted to put a decal on here, what you would do is you would epoxy this, and then you would place you'll let this, after you epoxy it, you'll let it sit for 24 hours. Then you'll place your decal on it, and then you'll re-epoxy it to seal the decal in, and then it will be good to go. I love how this turned out. And I'm going to place this under epoxy